here with Pat Kelly, the MP for Calgary-Rocky Ridge, and Pat has come up with a very interesting private members bill to champion the rights of taxpayers. As a member of Parliament, I get lots of people coming into my office who have had difficulty with the Canada Revenue Agency, and they often feel that they're not always getting level of service that they deserve, or timely and accurate information. So Mr. Kelly has come up with an idea to put some rights back in the hands of Canadian taxpayers. So Pat, why don't you start by explaining what your motion does?
Well, my motion, if adopted, will instruct the Finance Committee to study ways of creating an enforceable duty of care between the Canada Revenue Agency and taxpayers. Right now, the agency only owes a duty to the Minister of Finance and not to the taxpayer. The Liberals had actually promised to make the agency more what they called client-friendly, and we thought that this would be a way that all parties could come together and deliver accountability to taxpayers by creating a duty of care from the agency to the taxpayer.
And what exactly would duty of care mean for for Canadian taxpayers?
Well, what it would mean that in a case of gross negligence, and the Revenue Agency generally does a good job, and cases of gross negligence are rare, but when they happen, they have devastating consequences. The agency has enormous powers, and it needs to do its job correctly. But with those powers has to come extraordinary accountability, and this bill, this motion, if adopted, would establish that. Right now, if the agency is grossly negligent, you as a taxpayer, you may spend years and years and years fighting in court. Ultimately, if you win in court, generally the only outcome for you is that you may not have to pay the taxes that you were ordered to pay. All of your you may have lost your home, your business, your livelihood, your health all along the way. There's really not much recourse for the taxpayer, other than perhaps a judge will agree with you that you don't have to pay the tax. With a duty of care, the agency would be required to make the taxpayer whole in the case of if the agency is in fact grossly negligent.
So these would be examples where the agency has provided inaccurate information, but when you say gross negligence, it's a pretty high threshold. So
it certainly is, yes, gross negligence. And these cases happen. Part of the inspiration for this motion was the case of Irv LaRue. He was a British Columbian who was treated horribly, incompetently by the agency. This was well established in court, and the court in British Columbia did in fact state that the agency owed him a duty of care. But it took 20 years. It took 20 years of Irv to go from when the negligent audits began on him to having the court rule that this duty of care in fact existed. So we're asking members of Parliament to get ahead of a judicial trend and to recognize that duty of care is something that courts are talking about. This is an opportunity for us to have coherent legislation that will protect taxpayers and recognize what's happening in Canadian law.
Yeah, it sounds like a no-brainer. I'm definitely going to vote in favor of it. I imagine all the Conservatives will be as well. What do you think the Liberals and NDP are going to do this week?
Well, we were disappointed by the debates on this motion. The Liberals called my motion a solution in search of a problem. They mentioned that they're going to put an extra $400 million into the agency and figured that any lingering service problems that might exist there could be cured with extra money. The NDP completely mischaracterized this motion as an attack on the employees of the CRA, and it was pretty clear that the NDP will always put public employees' interests ahead of taxpayer interests.
So it looks like the Conservative Party will be the only ones standing up for Canadian taxpayers this week.
I hope not, but I have a feeling that may be based on what was heard in debate. I'm afraid that might be what happens, but we'll see on Wednesday. We hope that the Liberals will choose to take this opportunity to actually fulfill one of their own campaign promises.
Great. Well, I sure hope so. I'll be voting in favor of it, but great idea, and thanks for being on the side of Canadian taxpayers.
Thank you.